they thought about getting rid of, I don't know if this probably comes the whole U.S. wide, about getting rid of the No Child Left Behind, because if you actually sit there and look at the root of the problem, you're sitting through kids.
Right, that's a federal program.
And then you're all these levels within a classroom. Now, 5th grade here, when they get separated out, I'm glad that my child is in pretty much a group that is all along the same level as her. She gets challenged more and stuff like that. Our old school didn't do that. California, totally different. Where
yeah, I mean, I can't really speak a lot to
discrimination. You can't separate them like that, but I think that when you're passing through a child off to the next grade when they technically should not, you're forcing that teacher for the next year.
Oh, I understand.
To try and you're mixing ELLs in there and everything, and so I think that's probably where a lot of the teachers are having the whole issue, is because of the fact that they're having to teach A, M, and Z.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If you pass the 3rd grade EOG, you could be anything from. You have 20 kids in your class in 4th grade, and they all pass their 3rd grade EOG. That doesn't mean they're all at the same level when they get to 4th grade. Trust me.
Right.
They're vastly different because it doesn't take a lot to get a child through the 3rd grade EOG. I mean, it seems like it, and it's very stressful, but there's a vast disparity in ability and levels when you get those markers. And I'm not a big No Child Left Behind, but that's a federal legislation that we have to work under. Yeah. We have to work under what the state tells us. That's the whole thing, is a lot of people don't understand with the budget, and we're trying to do more budget frequently asked questions. We have no control over anything except for how we spend what we're given, and most of that we don't have a lot of control over because it's given to us in allotments by the state for certain positions only or for certain funds. And it's not like the state says, here's $1.2 billion and just spend it however you want. It's so tied up, and it's just, I thought it was going to be way easier to figure out the budget when I started doing this a year and a half ago. It's vastly complicated.
Would it not?
And this is the budget.
Would it not be something that they could do district-wide as far as like taking, and I'm not going to use discrimination, but separating, putting all your ELLs in one class and all your
I don't support that. I don't support that. I support inclusion education. I think that children need to be mixed in a variety. Children learn from other children regardless of their levels. So, Amy, you had a question?
Yeah, I am one of those 20-year veterans. I think I have 9 initials behind me. So.
But I still like you.
I know.
Because you're good and you work hard.
District G,
Right.
And there are some great 3-year bachelors, absolutely. I think that part of getting teachers on board with it, and not that everybody necessarily needs to vote, I'm not as bunched up about the teacher layoffs, because some need to go, some just
They do.
Not necessarily here, but in the world. But I think there does need to be a little bit more communication.
Communication is a big failing right now.
CMS is. That was a question last night that I thought was pretty interesting, and you mentioned that you said the board used to know CMS. Like, who makes the decisions? Because historically, teachers are used to working for the government. It's been that way. It doesn't need to change, probably at least a little bit, but they're not used to it. And unfortunately, politics are still a huge piece of whether or not they're going to do well. She said his teachers are relatively okay with everything coming down. He's not had a lot
I think because of communication at the school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I won't say that. I mean, I think there's an undertow. It hasn't come out because they don't feel like there's much that can be done. So it hasn't been, at some schools, and I would even think from the parent population, you know, you're reading the paper, and again, obviously that gets sensationalized, but you're reading the paper, schools wanting to do sit-ins.
I've got 2 schools that I've gotten like hundreds of emails from each school.
So we haven't had that influx. Now the teachers, when they came and shared value added with the staff, there was some people that had some angst, and they shared that. You know, I think they handled it appropriately compared to some schools based on what they've told me. But so I think it's there. I think some people don't feel they have a lot of control, so it's like an undertow almost. So it's in the teacher community, I think.
There's a lot of fear because we keep saying, what is the program? Well, we don't know. That's what we're designing. We're trying to design with your input. But we can't give you all the details because it's a work in progress. So
Do feel a little more secure over here than some of the others in other parts of the county? They feel pretty good about the job they're doing. They feel appreciated and valued. Therefore, they feel a little more calm about the change. My question about value added is, what about if it measures year to year? Dr. Corbett said last night, it measures follows the student.
it follows a student.
So what happens to a high school teacher who maybe the kid does okay that year and then they're on drugs that year? I mean, because then
Those things are factored into those demographics that I was talking about, because if a child is, there's a bunch of how many like the ISS is more an issue for high school, and that how many ISS days they had, how many all tardies, all these kind of things factor in, where you can start. Trust me, they track it. I know my daughter missed 4th block yesterday because she was downtown for a scholarship interview, because I got a phone call about 4th block. So he does an amazing job here, but if you went and spent the day, like walk in my shoes with the high school principal, you would need cocktail hour when you got done at 2:15. I mean, it is amazing. They're like running a ship that's sailing in circles in the ocean half the time, because they've got hormones and hismones and craziness and drugs and gangs, and it's just the high school teachers or principals is a special breed. That was going to get me back to another thing. I was at a function for my son's school on Sunday, and the PTA leaders came up and they wanted to introduce me to who's going to take over next year, and they said, I've got some friends at this other school on the other side of the county, and they keep bombarding me with emails about how mad they are about the testing that went on. And they protested and kept their kids out of school for 3 days because of it, and their kids were the parents are telling me, anyway, it was very strange to me, and I put notes on my Facebook page. Amy knows, I have a Facebook fan page. It's Rhonda, Lennon, CMS Board of Education. You can like it, and then you can get email or Facebooks from me, and I ask for feedback about stuff all the time. Like, what do you think about middle school sports or Right Beginnings, or what do you think about this? I do this all the time. I try to get feedback. And I did this about the testing, and I said, are your kids anxious? I want to know how you as a parent feel about it. And it was kind of funny because the responses were much less, there were not a lot of angst. They said, we realize where there has to be something, we're not sure this is the right thing, but these are field tests, and field tests are like a test drive, which means you go back and you figure out what worked and what didn't, and then you fix it for the next time. So that was interesting. And I started, this one particular school that keeps emailing me, I sent back an email to the PTA person that sent me an email, and I said, can I just ask a question? I said, I've gotten like 85 emails from your school alone about how horrible the whole week of summative testing was. And I haven't gotten hardly any, even though I've asked for responses from my own area up here. Now I said, I know District 1 has the best principals and the best students in the district, but are you having a leadership problem at your school? Because to me, it makes no sense that your school was under such angst over summative testing if your teachers either weren't prepared. When a school is telling me what hundreds of emails in 2 weeks, there's a problem at the top. And then it filtered down to the PTA leadership, because the emails I got were pretty much cut and pasted all the same data. So I know it was disseminated. So I said, if this was a concerted effort on your part, I applaud you because you did a good job and you got me 185 emails in 2 weeks. But can I really get a better judge of really what went on, because I'm confused. And I haven't gotten any more emails since I sent that. I don't know. But so there were a couple schools that really protested, and they kept their kids home. And some schools did not do a good job. Some of the things I know about the testing, they already know that there was 3 times more questions than what will be on the final. This is because they were test driving the questions. It was a pilot. They know that the kindergarten assessment needs to be all verbal and not written. Kindergarten K through 2. This is a 7. I don't know. It's more than 7 pages. This is a list of questions that myself and my fellow board members gave to Dr. Gorman and his staff on Monday, after we heard a lot about summative testing. And it's their response on everything.
And we actually as a school, teachers had more concerns, I think, about the appropriateness or inappropriateness of questions.
Yes.
Errors in grammar, missing pieces of questions.
A graph.
So we actually created a list for a school, and we actually sent it into accountability. So they were given all that to
That's
fix
what
it.
needs to
But
be
again,
done.
it was a field test. Should have been grammatical stuff in it, but there was mistakes all over it. So, you know, those were
And that's
things that we
acknowledged.
addressed right off the bat. So I think teachers were, and really assistants were the ones doing it, so they were the ones that came back with the feedback. But they were more frustrated because as they're trying to do a problem with the child and said,
There'll be a missing
which of
graph.
these 3 words are, and one of the words isn't there, that was frustrating to the person administering the test. So they were keeping track of that. So that was more the feedback we
But
had.
that was proactive feedback, and that's what a field test should be. So you know, I have a 3rd grader, and he does not sit still well, and so I'm already a little nervous about EOGs. I also have a daughter that somehow made it through, and she's going to be a teacher. She's a senior at North Met, and she couldn't read till she was in 3rd grade. And Lynn knows her because she bought all of her American Girl dolls when she was little. When my daughter outgrew them, we gave them all to Lynn a long time ago. But Madison couldn't read till she was in 3rd grade. And I couldn't understand because her older sister that was a grade ahead of her was reading on 8th grade level in 3rd grade. And I was just infinitely frustrated as a parent and didn't get it and couldn't figure it out. And I'm terrified about EOGs. And what should I do? Should I hold her back? She's a summer birthday. Maybe I should have never started her when she was just barely, you know, the right age. And a light bulb went off in her head because she had a teacher that understood what was missing in her brain that wasn't connecting the dots. And she had a teacher, and her teacher was in the 2nd year out of college. So when I talk about really being passionate about new teachers, a teacher that was in her 2nd year out of college unlocked the mystery of reading to my daughter. And my daughter is going to NC State, and she's going to be a teacher. And I get emotional when I talk about that. Because that's why I believe in teachers being effective. That teacher had 1 degree behind her name. It was a BA in education. That was it. But she cared enough, and everybody else was just like, oh, she can do it, she can do it. This teacher said she's not doing it, and I don't know why, and I'm going to work with her till I figure it out. So, you know, bottom line is she was interviewing for scholarships yesterday because of her academics. So I refuse to give up on kids, and people always ask, why are you on the school board? Because I refuse to give up on public education. And I get so frustrated when people talk badly about our graduates from our high schools. You should see the stuff that these kids are doing when they're graduating from high school. It's amazing. And this is at North Mech, and you know, because Huff hasn't had a graduating class. So, but as far as the summatives, the hardest thing about measuring teacher performance is that we only have EOG starting in 3rd grade. So we have a bunch of K2 teachers that are on these design teams saying there's got to be some way to measure what we're doing other than just a parent evaluation or the principal's you know, observations or the state evaluation. There's got to be some way to measure what we're doing. So it's a work in progress. Was it communicated well? In some schools it was communicated pretty well. And I consider that to be a leadership issue at a school level basis. I didn't get any big angst from this school. I didn't get any from any of my schools in my district. And I applaud Scott Murray for that, because I think that means that from the zone leader down to the principals, down to the teachers, it was communicated well. People in this particular school down in the very southern part of our county, they said that their kids were just stressed out and anxious. And I said, well, why would kids be stressed out and anxious if that wasn't coming to them from their parents? We made a not big deal out of testing, and we make a not big deal out of EOGs other than we eat a healthy breakfast and go to bed and get plenty of sleep the night before. And we try not to stress out about testing too much. So that's sort of where we are. I could answer any question you probably have about summative testing, but bottom line is they know there was mistakes. We know there's ways we can do it better. And the only way to learn is to get the feedback like your school has given to the accountability department. And that's what is essential.